latest epidemiological update published. It's in public domain. It shows the countries that are having increasing cases, increasing deaths in orange. And you can see a belt on the eastern horizon next to India. And north of India, we know what is happening. That is in China. 1.4 billion people are suddenly being exposed to the virus. So it is always a good thing to remain cautious. This does not mean spreading panic. It is about being aware of a potential problem that could come. And if cases rise, then we can step up our measures accordingly.
Yeah.
Right now, precautionary measures are needed.
So what does that mean for the average citizen? Rajiv Jayadevan, very quickly before I take a final word with Dr. Grover, what are you advising the public? Because you've got holiday season, a lot of people mingling, going to parties. I'm not sure if masking is going to be on the top of their heads.
Absolutely. It's difficult to do masking in close social gatherings among friends. But that being said, people with vulnerabilities, for example, if they're older individuals or people living with older people, people who have compromised immune systems or severe comorbid conditions are advised to take extra caution because they do not want to take ill at this time. Right now, hospital loads are low. As Dr. Grover said, right now India is going through a what is called a low tide phase of the pandemic, and we hope it stays this way. We just want to be cautious. That's all.
Right. And Dr. Grover, I believe the central message that is also coming to light over the last 2 weeks when we've been discussing COVID rise in China is that if you haven't taken your booster, then that becomes a priority right now.
Yeah. Priority of taking a booster is very important, even if we are vaccinated with both kind of vaccine as well. Because whatever cases, they are mild. So severity, if it is less, and virulence, so as the severity is more and virulence is less, it is major contribution of vaccine as well. If we are vaccinated, we have more and more antibodies into our system. And if we are keep boosting ourselves, these antibodies are having short life of history. So if we are boosting ourselves, our body will be having immune cells. They will be having more and more amount of antibodies. If we are getting an infection anywhere, so we can deal with any kind of new infection. This antibody can prevent that severe infections as well.
So the message clearly is that especially if you're vulnerable in the aged section or you have comorbid situation, then you are at greater risk. So take care of yourself. If you can, mask up, avoid social gatherings and take your booster shot as well. I do thank our experts for joining us. With that, it's a wrap on Brass Tacks. My colleague Ayushman is joining you with News Epicenter.
Hello and welcome to News Epicenter with me, Ayushman Singh Jamal. We are back here again, ladies and gentlemen, where the death of a young and rising artist is once again mired in controversy, which once again poses big questions, not just over the circumstances surrounding Tunisha Sharma's death, but also the world we live in today. Tunisha was just 20 years old and was found dead on the sets of her TV show Ali Baba on Saturday. A day later, her ex-boyfriend and co-star from the show Shazan Khan was arrested on charges of abetment to suicide. He was then sent to police custody for 4 days, which ended today, but the court has extended his custody till the 30th of December. Now, as per the FIR, Tunisha's mother has claimed that her daughter was in love with Shazan and was upset over their breakup. Her mother further claimed that Tunisha had panic attacks due to the end of the relationship. She even says Shazan was involved with another woman and used her daughter for 3 to 4 months. Shazan and Tunisha broke up 15 days before her death. The police is also analysing WhatsApp chats between the two, adding that they have recovered chats of around 250 to 300 pages from June to December this year to try and understand why the two parted ways. They are also looking into communications between Shazan and other women to see if there are any links to Tunisha's death. Shazan was grilled for 7 hours on Tuesday and claims his family did not approve of their relationship, but sources suggest he is repeatedly changing his statement. Now, these are the facts of the cases as they stand, and just hours after Tunisha's death, many members of the political class jumped in to claim love jihad. But now Tunisha's relative has made the same claim. Pawan Sharma claims that Tunisha had changed after meeting Shazan and even started wearing a hijab. Now, from the shocking Shraddha Walkar murder case to now Tunisha, the love jihad angle has emerged once again. Given the gaps of information we have, the war of conjecture has started once again, ladies and gentlemen. But this poses a few questions. Was Tunisha in a toxic and coercive relationship which drove her to suicide? Can a short-lived relationship, infidelity, and a breakup peg someone as guilty for abetment to suicide? Most importantly, are we overlooking a mental health angle when it comes to another young woman ending her life? Were there red flags ignored by her close friends and family? Moreover, has love jihad become a brazen tactic to sling more mud on the image of a former boyfriend who happens to be a Muslim?
बहुत सी चीज़ें हैं जो अभी सामने आने दीजिए। हाँ, तुनिशा के बिहेवियर में काफ़ी चेंजेस थे। उसने ये हिजाब पहनना शुरू किया था।
And more breaking news coming in, where it seems that the accused Shazan Khan is not cooperating with the police in the investigation. That's what we are learning from the police who have Shazan in custody. The probe has also revealed that the deceased, who is Tunisha Sharma, had a conversation with Shazan Khan shortly before hanging herself to death. That's the piece of breaking news that's coming in. The twists and turns continue, ladies and gentlemen, where now what we are learning is that even though the mother has claimed that Shazan was the one who drove her to suicide, what we are learning when it comes to the interrogation of Shazan Khan is that he is constantly changing his statement. There's not one clear-cut statement that's coming from him. Remember, the investigation has also gone into the relationship Shazan Khan had with other women and whether that had any links to Tunisha Sharma's death. The probe has also revealed that the deceased had a conversation with the accused Shazan Khan shortly before hanging herself. So what was the basis of that conversation? What did they speak to each other about? That has become another focus of the investigation. What were the circumstances which led to Tunisha Sharma's death? And this entire case, abetment to suicide, what are the charges against Shazan Khan? Let's understand this entire case that has come to light. I'm joined by Dr. Vikram Singh, former DGP of Uttar Pradesh, as well as Amber Zaidi, social activist, who will join us in a bit. Also joined by Swapnil Kothari, senior lawyer, as well as Dr. Kapil Kakkar, who's a renowned psychologist. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on CNN News 18. Vikram Singh, I'd want to come to you first when it comes to these kind of cases which are low on information but high on optics because of the nature of the crime, especially given the fact that the two individuals involved are from the entertainment industry. Now, when it comes to the charge of abetment to suicide, how does the police navigate a case like this, which has so much gaps in information, which get filled with conjecture, primarily in the social media world that we live in?
Obviously, as you very rightly mentioned, that it is high in optics, but it is a high-profile case too. And therefore, the disturbances and the reverberations created by politicians, the media stars, and others, we need to stick to only the investigation and the evidence that needs to be corrected. We have eminent Mr. Swapnil Kothari who will tell you that Section 306 of the Indian Penal Code is one of the most difficult sections to prove in a court of law. The interactions, the WhatsApp chats, the communications, the missed calls, the calls made, the calls received, and also the transcript, as you mentioned, if at all that is true, that will be a window into the personality of Shazan Khan and also a window into what transpired between the deceased and Shazan Khan. We must not level allegations. It will be, as you very rightly mentioned, it is not the right time to level allegations, but investigation is as sacred as the judicial proceedings itself. Now, as you mentioned, what are the ingredients? Every investigation has an investigation plan. And in that plan, what can be produced in the court of law? Any extrajudicial confession, the transcripts from the various communications, social media threads, and whatever he may have said, or the deceased may have said to her doctor, to her mother, to her uncle, and others. That would be very important piece of evidence. And this, he has made any extrajudicial confession, because any statement before the police like that will be of no consequence whatsoever. But the other circumstantial evidence, agreed that it is a very circuitous, it is very difficult, but certainly doable for a skillful investigator.
Right. And Mr. Kothari, I want to come to you on that point. For now, all we have is the claims of the family that that she changed after she met him. She started wearing a hijab. That's the claim from the uncle. The mother is saying that they had a relationship for 3 to 4 months, during which time he used her. Used her is the word that has been used by Tunisha's family. And at the same time, Tunisha's family has also said that he had relationships with other women, and which led to Tunisha having panic attacks. She was depressed, and which led to her eventual suicide. When it comes to abetment of suicide, as per the wording of the law, what are the points against Shahzan Khan when it comes to building a case?
Ayushman, let me tell you something. Before we embark on Section 306, the cops need to establish first that there was a suicide. Because Section 306 primary ingredient is that there has to be a definitive conclusion of suicide. Then you have to say that the conduct of the accused was the proximate cause, and it was a complete mens rea on his part, on the part of the accused, that is criminal intention to ensure that this person should die or should commit suicide. So at this stage, we are not even aware as to whether it was a suicide. To drum it up as suicide and then to embark on 306 as abetment to suicide is trying to make a job of the cops that too easy. Criminal investigations take quite some time. So it's not very easy for me to brush it off as suicide and then say, okay, let's conduct a trial under Section 306, and we'll see how difficult or easy it is to then conduct a trial, and let's see how the court, pans up with it or teams up with that. What has happened is that, say Sushant Singh Rajput's case, a clear case of clear-cut murder, has been drummed off as suicide. Jia Khan, everything has been drummed off as suicide. I'm glad that Sushant's case is at least open for that matter, and Jia's case can be reopened, or even Disha Salian's case can be reopened or is about to be reopened with an SIT coming in. So that, as we say in Hindi, doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani ho jayega, in the sense that at least because you see what happens is that there are several evidences that point towards the direction here. Now I'll talk about this case. First of all, why the evasiveness of answers by Shahzan? Why can't he say that, okay, I had I had extra affairs. He was not married. Of course, to say that I had several affairs, nothing wrong with that. You can have them. The girl is heartbroken. That doesn't mean that she's go and jump over the cliff. That's one. Two, even if I said the worst things to her verbally, orally, that you should die, you should die, you should die. No court of law is going to punish you for that. There are several judgments to that effect which say that even if you said to an accused 10 times, to the victim 10 times, that doesn't mean that you want that person to die. There has to be a clear-cut criminal intention on your part to show the circumstances, to show that she should die or that you want that she should commit suicide. The way the investigation is going on, 50 minutes before, she was happily having a shoot, Ayushman.
Yeah.
And then, they go into a makeup room. Are you trying to tell me that, within 50 minutes, she decided, like the way Sushant decided, that, Flipkart's offer 4 days before on the 9th of June is not sufficient money for me, given my stardom, so let me go and jump and let me go and die or kill myself? How absurd is that is? So, the thing is that all these things need to be investigated further. Then you need to go and examine 306 and its implications. Trust me, Ayushman, 0.07 is the conviction rate under Section 306. It is extremely difficult to prove Section 306 given the set of circumstances. It requires not ingenuity of a legal mind, but more so a collection of evidences that show that, yes, this man was really, yes, the WhatsApp chats, why they were deleted. I am not still on the terrain of suicide. I would still want to examine this further and not close my eyes to something which could be more ghastly than that. I'm not examining the love jihad angle. I don't believe in that. That sounds a little too petty, because Section 302 doesn't say that I'm going to increase the sentence for, more than death or life imprisonment if it's love jihad, and I'm going to keep it at death and life imprisonment if it's only death. If it's only murder, it's Section 302. Whether it's applicable, whether it's love jihad, whether it's plain brutal straight murder, whatever it may be. So I don't want to get into the love jihad angle. That sounds too petty to me.
Right. So you're also bringing up this point that, and which for which I want to go to Dr. Kakkar on this point, that 50 minutes before she's having a shoot, then she goes into her makeup room and suddenly she's dead. Dr. Kakkar, whenever we talk about cases like this, it's always, we are flabbergasted. How can a person take such an extreme step? One moment you're normal, second moment you go into a makeup room and you end your life. You take that extreme step. we are flabbergasted, which is why it leads to all this conjecture that could there be some inducement, could there be a conspiracy behind it. But when it comes to the mental health angle, when it comes to these kind of cases where people are driven to suicide, when it comes to understanding their mental state, we still don't know, as a society also, we don't address it as an issue in India. So can you take us through the mental health angle that you see coming in from this case, which in the cases when we talk about conspiracy gets completely ignored? It gets ignored in SSR case, it got ignored in the Jia Khan case, it got ignored even in that Balkavadhu actor Pratyusha Banerjee's case also, it got completely ignored. So are we in a situation where we want to talk about conspiracies but we conveniently ignore the mental health angle?
Well, see, this is a classic case of severe emotional breakdown. And as a psychologist, we understand for world outside, for common man, it may sound very unusual, the behavior of victims like this. But for psychologists, this is a very normal behavior. It is not a movie running where you will see a person is under severe depression and the hairs are going here and there, and the person is just running around with a sad face or in a pensive mood. It does not happen like that. So why I'm saying is it is a severe case of breakdown for a simple reason. This lady seems to be madly in love with this man, as per the information shared by her mother, that when she started wearing hijab also, you can understand the kind of obsession and the kind of unconditional love she had for this fellow. On the top of it, when she realizes this guy is having an extramarital affair, he has.
I would suggest we don't use the word marital over here. This was just two people having a relationship.
Yes. So it was in a form of infidelity, or what he was doing is basically that. Because that reason broke her down completely, and that is when, now see what happens psychologically in such cases, and why she attempted, or not attempted, but why she committed suicide in this case was because coming out of this phase also takes at least 3 to 4 months. It is not easy emotionally. It is equivalent to a lady getting raped. I don't know if people understand this or not. When somebody is ditched and is unconditionally involved with someone, and this is something that happens, it is not easy for that person to recover in 10 days, 15 days, or 20 days. So normally, such people, the thinking of committing suicide, that the world will be a better place without the person, is not uncommon. The uncommon thing is when people don't understand it because they don't understand psychology. We all look at things from a very common, perspective, that ye kaise ho sakta hai, that half an hour before she seemed okay, but she was not okay. She must have been in emotional turbulent time, and she may have already thought about it, that perhaps I might take a chance, not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe day after. And unfortunately, there was no countenance for her. And that is where, when you talk about mental health, normally family members working hope against hope think that things are, with time is a big healer. Everything will settle down with time. And that is when they don't go to mental health experts, is why such things, unfortunate things happen. The day we realize that mental health is like a virus. So the minute you have that fever, and once the fever crosses 102, 103 degrees, it is time that you need to speak, not to a friend, not to your family members. Obviously, you speak to them, but a professional intervention is required.
Yeah, Vikram Singh, I want to take that point to you. Dr. Kath, I think you've made a very valid point when it comes to our understanding of these cases, from Jia Khan to Sushant Singh Rajput. Vikram Singh, do you think that when it comes to policing such cases, this is an angle that we completely ignore? Mental health is a very daunting issue in our country, and we've barely scratched the surface when it comes to public discourse about mental health. When it comes to policing such cases, Is this an angle that is completely ignored?
Absolutely, Ayushman. I couldn't agree with Dr. Kakkar more than what he has said. There's merit in what he has said. And as a professional, I have seen those who have some kind of compromised mental health equilibrium, and the threshold is so low, and they confide with many, many of their friends that I am contemplating of harming myself. I am contemplating suicide. And that comes weeks and weeks before the actual incident happens. And what could have been done to prevent that was that had there been a shock absorber in the family or in the organization, that was totally preventable. Had somebody like Dr. Kakkar intervened, I think those suicides could have been prevented. Had there been the shock absorber. Now to say also, many of those who did commit their suicide, they wrote in their, and that is very hard rending, that if somebody prevents me and asks me not to do that, I will not commit suicide. But unfortunately, not a single person prevented that person saying, look, you are far too precious. Your human life is so sacred. Don't do it. And a bit of counseling, a medication, because stress, depression, and then suicidal tendencies. The mental threshold takes a level wherein the person contemplates of harming oneself. But yes, there is medication, there is counseling, and there is a shock absorber system within the organization that could be addressed. Unfortunately, we look the other way because we treat it as something that we do not even discuss in public discourse.
Absolutely.
I'm so happy, Ashman, that you're discussing it, that everybody should know that it is curable, preventable, and there's nothing to be feel sorry or shy about.
Yeah, I'm also joined by Amber Zaidi, who's joining us on the broadcast now. Now, Ms. Zaidi, whenever we face tragedies like this, we are always reverse engineering all the circumstances which led to that death. And now, I'm not surprised that the love jihad angle has also been thrown into it. Beyond the facts of the case, do you feel that there is so much conjecture which derails the entire pursuit of finding out the truth of what exactly happened to Tunisha Sharma?
See, I can't say anything what exactly happened with Tunisha Sharma because the investigation is under process, and the police will finally reveal what actually happened with her, because she was happily shooting routinely as she used to do, and just 5 minutes before dying, she posted in social media she was normally behaving and working like a normal person. So we really can't say that what was going inside and between the two of them, that the other actor we were talking about, the Shizan Muhammad Khan, the other actor who was working with her in the same scene. But now the issue when we talk about the love jihad, this the same pattern on the cases of love jihad are very, very common. Every now and then the cases of same patterns are coming every day, and it is being reported in media, and the pattern is same, that the girls of other religion are being targeted, and the purpose and motive of for targeting and getting in relationship with those girls are is only the forceful conversion, and the new pattern where girls are being killed, that is very concerning.
But Ms. Zaidi, I want to ask this question. I know which line you're going in. Beyond the faith of Shizan Khan, what makes you think this is a case of love jihad?
See, that's what I'm saying, that when we talk about love jihad, some people say that love jihad doesn't exist. So many literate and aware people say, and on the other hand, I personally talk to some religious scholars, they blatantly say that there is nothing called love jihad and it doesn't exist. When we talk about the reported cases in media, in courts, in police, every other day there's such cases are coming, and the new pattern we are discussing where girls are being targeted and are being killed. So this is a new pattern. I can't say anything what was going between Shizan and Tunisha, but how we could see that she was wearing hijab, and maybe that she might be the one of the target of, or she might be the one of the love jihad cases. So that can be this can be the possibility. So I really can't say what was the case between Shizan and Tunisha. That police will reveal. I cannot say, but I am just generally discussing the other cases and the pattern of love jihad.
Right. Mr. Kothari, do you think this entire love jihad angle that has cropped up, I mean, I completely understand with the politicians stepping in. They have their vote banks that they have to pander to, which is why they say love jihad. But now her uncle has also stepped in. Amber Zaidi is also making the point that we can't ignore the pattern of love jihad cases. Do you think that it only muddies the entire narrative surrounding the investigation of such a case where a young woman, a 20-year-old woman, has committed suicide after a breakup with her ex-boyfriend? He just happens to be a Muslim. And this love jihad angle now is coming and muddying the waters.
Well, I wouldn't exactly use the word muddying the waters. I would say that possibly it deflects a little bit from the way the actual investigation of the case should be taken. Just as common people don't understand about psychology, common people do not understand about the nuances of the law. The law is extremely difficult as far as these kind of cases is concerned. The investigating agencies have to follow the Criminal Procedure Code and the Evidence Act. As far as this is concerned, you have to, first of all, the first and foremost thing that possibly a suicide person does is leave a suicide note. Now, absent that, there are several judgments which say that absent that, it's a little difficult for courts to come to a conclusion that yes, it was a suicide if it was left to the hands of the courts. So now I'm not saying that the police have to come up always with 100% scientific proof that this is a suicide and this is not a murder. But they have to investigate thoroughly to the point, keeping all angles in mind. Yes, you keep love jihad, you keep psychology, you keep anxiety, you keep depression, everything. Let me tell you something, Ayushman, in our profession, in our legal profession, I could tell you 90% of the people suffer from anxiety or some people suffer from depression. That doesn't mean that they want to jump over the cliff or they want to do, commit harm to themselves. Nowhere has the mother said that she wanted to commit suicide. Nowhere has the mother come out with that. She is conjecturing that it is possibly a suicide. All I'm trying to say is that do not make it so easy for the cops to shut this aspect. Jia Khan's case, Sushant Singh Rajput's case, yes, all had a depressive angle to that. But there is no conclusion to that. There are several other evidences that point in the direction of which is not suicide. So I'm trying to say that do not shut this case. This case happened maybe just a tad weak. Why is the accused evasive? One, why is he not answering questions? Two, why is his custody being extended by the court today by another 2 days? All these questions merit, just as those questions merited in the previous cases that I mentioned to you, that several people came out and started saying in the first hand itself in Sushant's case or in Jia Khan's case, yes, it is a suicide. Why? Did anybody ask you? So that is what I'm trying to tell you, that forget all those cases. I want to examine this case on its own anvil, on its own legs. This case, I don't believe much in the love jihad angle. For me, section 302 or section 306, that's what matters at the end of the day. You want to examine love jihad angle, you do examine that. Now that's really, trying to grill the person and put him through a narco test and ask him that whether really he belongs to a minority religion. So he wants to, induce people of the majority religion. All this sounds a tad too difficult to prove in a court of law. Just as political vendetta, targeting, star children, targeting netas, all this is extremely difficult. Lawyers don't even argue that point. What is argued here in the media, they do not argue, they stick by the law. So Ayushman, my short point is very simple. Go by the CRPC, go by the evidence, conduct a proper, thorough investigation. We have a very eminent, distinguished general of police here, Director General of Police in the form of Mr. Vikram Singh. He will tell you that as a cop, what are the things that we need to look at and we need to go by, and he will agree with me that you need to follow the CRPC. All of these things are absolutely tangential to me. A life has been lost, whether it's suicide, whether it's murder. Examine these two thoroughly, go by the book, and then come to a conclusion. And yes, I agree with one thing, that if you really find that the person is suffering from depression, you should have approached a psychologist first if that was the case, if ever it showed that kind of a tendency. So I will talk that generally, yes, this is correct. But in this case, and all in the other cases that I mentioned, or even the Pratyusha Banerjee case, the answer is no. There are several damning evidences pointing to the contrary.
Right, and that is my point as well, that you're saying there are several damning evidences pointing to the contrary, pointing away from suicide. Then why do these cases extend for so many years?
Exactly.
Why can't there be a closure to these cases? We're still trying to figure out whether the Sushant Singh Rajput case is a murder or suicide. It happened in 2020. Vikram Singh, would you want to comment on that?
Best CBI can only answer.
I would like to certainly. Well, Mr. Swapnil Kothari has given something very, very I would say ominous, and yes, full of words of wisdom. In 3 words, he has said, it is for the CBI to answer. And these investigations, on one hand, they're not something that is like rocket science, but also if some investigator chooses to just mark time on that, and by marking time, you give the opportunity to the witnesses to turn hostile, to retract, and to be won over. And under these circumstances, you say that if a case is delayed or the investigation goes on for years and years together, then rest assured that the fate of the case is sealed and it is bound to end in acquittal with strictures against the investigators. But yes, these are high-profile cases and there are too many pulls and pressures. And that is why you find that high-profile cases do not end the investigation soon and they languish for months and years together. And that is where the problem arises.
Right. And what happens also is that a lot of people's names get dragged through the mud and they don't get a chance to take legal action for defamation, if you will. I mean, to an extent, I think Riya Chakrabarti is still in limbo when it comes to the entire drug angle. She doesn't have any opportunity to fight for her image because clearly her image was dragged to the mud. Now Shazan Khan also, same thing is happening to him. God knows how long this case will continue. Dr. Kakkar, I'll give you the final word or what you have to say about this case. Now, to a great extent, whenever these cases have come to the fore, like we have discussed, the mental health angle completely gets ignored. Why do you think this is still such a taboo issue for us to talk about? Because especially in our saturated social media world, where you have an entire class of youth which is so driven by the affirmation of strangers on social media, this has become a real concern in a country like ours, especially with so many young people exposed to social media. Why is this still such a taboo issue which never gets percolated whenever tragedies like this come to the fore?
So I will like to answer this question through the observation which was also made by Mr. Kothari, that when somebody is in an extreme condition of despair, right, in a position of helplessness, hopelessness, for them, there is no support system. They don't think of any mental health. They don't think of a psychologist. That is one. Secondly, like he said, Mr. Kothari said, why did she not even talk once to her mother about suicide? Such victims, they normally, when they enter into a relationship wherein they have not perhaps in the past confided with their parents, or they feel that the parents would not have appreciated, then they take it as a full responsibility upon themselves that they need to come out of it without disturbing their parents. And that is why they may not confide with their family members. And lastly, like you said, because this is still a taboo, going to a psychologist, thinking mental health is a condition of something like being insane, a pagalpan. So people normally, because they feel that they are going to lower their self-concept, they like to just pray and hope that they will better themselves with certain period of time. Like I initially said, in this case, if this girl would have survived for 2 months, she would have come out of this trauma. But in this case, she chose to take it up on herself, and that is why this unfortunate incident happened. Lastly, now the question is, why is the accused changing his statement? We also need to understand the accused will not know the right mental condition of that girl, because the accused is self-obsessed. He is basically thinking about his gain, his own interest. He has decided that now I will sever my relationship with a girl because I am now involved with another girl. So for him, this girl, what was happening in her life, what she was thinking, he would not have much insight to it. And that is when in police interrogation, such people would come out with their own conjecture because they themselves don't know what happened on the other side.
Right.
Now, if you look at the murder case which happened where the bodies were chopped, very recently, now there the person can still take off for a ride. But in this case, this man does not know himself to what extent she went mentally and emotionally that she took away her life. So that is why his statements are bound to change, because he is also speculating somewhere.
Right. So those twists and turns will continue, because at the end of the day, we need a swift closure to this case to find out the truth. Because when cases like this keep extending. There's so many gaps in information. It gets filled with politics and conjecture. We never have a reasonable and a concrete end to such cases, and the narrative just keeps continuing. I hope the authorities end up finding the truth, what exactly happened, and we have a closure to this case, not just for our fans, especially for our families, similar with the Sushant Singh Rajput case. Dr. Vikram Singh, Amber Zaidi, Swapnil Kothari, Dr. Kapil Kakkar, thank you for joining us on this debate and sharing your perspective. Now, let's shift focus to debate 2, ladies and gentlemen. China seems to be on the brink of collapse as the COVID outbreak seems to be getting even worse. Now, 5,000 deaths are being recorded on a daily basis. Morgues and hospitals are overburdened, and videos are surfacing every single day showing the crumbling state of the medical infrastructure. Due to the dire situation, there's a limited supply of medication and a steep rise in prices. This is forcing millions of Chinese to turn to the black market for Indian drugs, with appeals being made on social media platforms as well. Now, topics like anti-COVID generic drugs have been trending on Chinese social media platform Weibo, with users exchanging messages on how to get hold of these medicines. And yet, China officially denies any such resurgence of the pandemic. The proof is for everyone to see, as Xi Jinping's COVID-0 policy has completely collapsed, but has the Chinese regime's signature information blackout gone for a toss as well?
This is the result of Xi Jinping's decision to lift China's zero-COVID policy. Bodies are piling up in mortuaries as the country battles one of its worst phases of the pandemic. Experts are predicting that the death toll will reach 1 million. As the situation gets more dire, Chinese are combing through the black market to hunt for Indian drugs. China approved 2 COVID-19 antivirals this year, but their limited supply and steep prices have driven many Chinese to look for cheaper but illegal options. So 4 kinds of generic anti-COVID drugs from India are being sold illegally in the Chinese market.
Government of India has got its own supplies in order, number one. It's China which is facing deficiency of drugs. So basically the local government always has to come out with the deficit of drugs from the system's perspective, and they need to talk to the respective governments. And in this case, Indian government, that we want to have these drugs.
Meanwhile, a US intelligence report claims that China revealed its biological weapons ambition quite a while before the pandemic ravaged the world. The declassified report claims that in 2005, the US State Department publicly stated that China operates an offensive biological weapons program. 2 Chinese entities were specifically identified as likely involved, one of which is the Fifth Institute. The report said that in 2006, China acknowledged that the Fifth Institute specifically researches SARS coronaviruses. But China continues to play hide and seek. From not revealing the truth about the origin of the virus, to concealing the real number of cases and deaths, and hastily lifting restrictions which have triggered the biggest outbreak the world has ever seen. It's been one misstep after another. So who will hold Xi Jinping accountable?
And breaking news coming in, as China fails to curb air travel given the rise in COVID cases, Italy has now decided to screen all China arrivals for COVID. So that's the move that's coming in from other countries. I'm joined by Abhishek Jha on the phone line, who's getting us this piece of breaking news. So Abhishek, Italy has taken this step. Are more countries likely to join in?
Of course, and in Italy, the measure is essentially to ensure that the surveillance and identification of any variant of the virus, which we believe that in China, so far it has been said that Omicron is the most dominant and prominent virus in China. That should be detected very first. Lombardy, the first region in Italy which had first imposed lockdown in way back in 2020, has found almost 50% of people coming from China being tested positive. So that is quite an alarm bell that has run across Italy and countrywide. Every airport is started testing people coming from China. Not only Italy, now it is being learned that USA health officials are also mulling this idea of screening people who are arriving from China, because we know that China has not only lifted any restriction from inbound tourists who are coming in China from 8th of January. It is also gradually opening up for Chinese tourists to go abroad, because before Corona, Chinese tourists used to be one of the highest, community who would travel across the world. So if now China also allows outbound tourists to go across the world and roam around, and a number of COVID infected people in China is so high, it is a very well expected or anticipated threat that this virus that is raging in China currently will also spread across the globe, and it can actually jeopardize all the normalcy or the situation that we are currently living in. And it can actually drag us back to 3 years ago when we were feeling the brunt of this COVID pandemic across the world.
Absolutely. Thank you, Abhishek, for getting us that piece of breaking news. Let's get to our guests. I'm joined by former diplomat Prabhu Dayal, Dr. Rajiv Das Gupta, chairperson of the Center for Social Medicine and Community Health, as well as Jennifer Zeng, Chinese whistleblower and human rights activist. Thank you for joining us on the broadcast to discuss the entire crisis that's taking place in China when it comes to the rising COVID cases. Around 5,000 deaths being reported on a daily basis. Jennifer Zeng, I want to come to you first when it comes to the situation on the ground. Do you see the easing of restrictions and of course the subsequent spike in cases as the Chinese regime reacting to the rampant protests that were taking place across the country? The public order had become such an issue that they had to ease the curbs when it comes to controlling cases of COVID, and that has led to this massive surge.
No, I think the massive protest is just an excuse the CCP want to use. More and more evidence has emerged to show that the outbreak had already out of control before or while the CCP is having its 20th National Congress, which is the most important political event in China. So that was in the middle of October. So because the political event is so important, so the CCP regime was covering up the outbreak until it can no longer cover it up. Even the official from the WHO is claiming that the outbreak was already out of control before the mass protest. So the mass protest just gave them an excuse or a surface reason to ease up, but they eased up because it is always out of control. It is not the other way around, because if it eased up, it is out of control. So we must straighten this fact out first.
Right. Ms. Zeng, and what is the situation on the ground right now in the big Chinese cities when it comes to trying to control the entire rise in COVID cases? We've heard many cases where there is no access to life-saving medication. The hospitals are overflowing. What we are getting in the international media when it comes to the situation in China, is the situation much worse in the mainland?
I do believe so. Every day you can see videos like what you are seeing on the screen now. Today I shared a little more, and in Shenyang city in Liaoning province in northeast China, they are using the quarantine camp, or in Chinese they call it Fangchang Hospital, that thousands of square meters of facility which was used to lock people up during the lockdown. They are now using that kind of spaces to store the bodies. Or sometime, like yesterday, I shared a video of they are using the underground garage, huge underground garage in Chongqing city in southwest China to store bodies. And in Beijing, there were also some people saying they are use cold store warehouse for meat for pigs to store as many as 15,000 bodies in a place called Yuquanying. So that was in Beijing. So every day we see similar videos coming out of China. So the situation is very, very dire at the moment.
Right, and the entire medical infrastructure has been overwhelmed. And as you're pointing out, that meat storage lockers are now being used to house bodies. Prabhu Dayal, how should the world be reacting to this? Italy has already said it will screen all the arrivals coming in from China. Once China was the epicenter of the COVID crisis, it's poised to become that epicenter of that crisis once again. But no curbs on air travel coming in from the Chinese regime. How should the world look at this?
Should definitely learn the
I'm sorry, Ms. Zeng, that question was for Prabhu Dayal. Yeah.
Very frankly, I think that the situation in China is totally out of control. Hospitals are overflowing with patients. The funeral homes are also reportedly very busy. And at the same time, the Chinese government seems to have lost a grip on the situation. I have a feeling, and this is shared by a lot of analysts, that something very dangerous was going on behind the scenes. During your introductory comments, you had spoken about some research labs, and there were some apprehensions that these labs were engaging in the production of biological weapons. This view is held increasingly by analysts all over the world, and the fact that the conditions in the lab have gone out of control is the reason why many think that the virus is spreading beyond the government's control. In other words, the mess was created by the Chinese government, which now is unable to control it. At the same time, amidst all this outbreak of the pandemic, there are reports which you referred to where the Chinese residents have turned to the black market for generic COVID drugs because according to what I make out, there are restrictions which have been placed by the Chinese government on drugs which are not imported through them, and selling them is a punishable offense. So while on the one hand, Indian generic drugs are in huge demand and they are very popular as a source of treatment, but at the same time, the lack of availability of these medicines is compounding the situation. So in a nutshell, the outbreak of the pandemic and the inability of the Chinese government to control it is a very serious matter and has to be viewed seriously by all countries.
Right. And Mr. Dayal, so is it high time that India and other countries now ban the arrival of Chinese?
I think that more and more countries are placing restrictions on immigrants coming from China, arrivals from China. I haven't really followed the up-to-date developments relating to our own restrictions, but I won't be surprised that we also place restrictions simply because we have to protect our people, and people coming from China may be bringing in the virus. So more and more countries are placing these restrictions, and I will not be surprised at all if we also do the same.
Dr. Das Gupta, now as someone who has tracked the COVID crisis, what happened in India with the multiple waves, any explosion of the COVID virus which takes place like it's happening in China, what does that do to mutation when it comes to the virus? And does that nullify a lot of the medication and the vaccination that is out there? Because we're seeing that many Chinese are turning to Indian drugs, and especially when it comes to their vaccination cover also, it has not been effective. Do you sense that the virus has mutated to a certain degree in China? Or have the Chinese vaccines, the ones that the Chinese government has, that they've developed, has been ineffective when it comes to tackling not just the original COVID virus, but its various variants that have now spread all over the world?
Thank you. The first problem, as all commentators and all international media channels report, is the lack of information, the lack of scientific and technical information, not just number of cases, but the genomic analysis That's not just coming out from China. So it's a lot of guesswork and a lot of epidemiological sense that we apply to what we at least know. And therefore, going by that, one, of course, that the BF7 is one of the leading subvariants that's causing this huge surge, particularly in some cities. It's also possible that there are some other subvariants or variants at play. But as far as India goes, and particularly if we focus on BF7, XBB, etc., these are all Omicron subvariants. And India has actually got the immunological experience of going through several of these. BF7 was identified in as early as July by the GBRC Gandhinagar. The short point being that we have gone through the Omicron subvariant. That's something that causes mild disease, and therefore, rather than numbers, or rather to add to what we watch for numbers, is hospital admissions of complicated cases and deaths. Now, through the Omicron phase, India hasn't witnessed any of that. And to that extent, the Indian experience is much closer or mirrors the South African experience. Of course, the Chinese health system is seemingly in a crisis by all accounts. We require support from countries such as India, particularly given that both are G20 member states. India has just assumed the presidency, and not just that, pandemic preparedness is one of the key focus areas of G20. So this really is the time to demonstrate this partnership and collaboration.
Right. So that should be the approach of the Indian side. That's what Dr. Dasgupta is pointing out. I want to give the final word to Jennifer Zeng. Ms. Zeng, when it comes to this entire COVID crisis, how do you see the next few weeks playing out in China? Is public anger once again at a tipping point, or do you sense the Xi Jinping regime will now go for an all-out crackdown to not just control the information, but to control any outbursts of public protest?
Of course, the CCP has been and is still controlling the information, like they stopped issuing any numbers. And the CDC is still, I just checked, issuing fake numbers. Their number is only 4,000 infections in the whole China yesterday. So the number is still in totally control. Yes, I do feel public anger is rising, especially now we see many celebrities in the society are dying, or their family are dying, or they can't get a decent service after their family are dying. So the anger is definitely rising, and as the infection is spreading, I think we are going to see a huge continual hike in the hospitalization and the death numbers. That is for sure to come in the coming weeks.
Right. Jennifer Zeng, Dr. Rajiv Dasgupta and Prabhu Dayal, thank you for joining us on CNN News 18 on this discussion when it comes to the COVID crisis in China. That's all we have to pack in on the show. I will see you in a short while for the late night edition.
India began in 2014 in right earnest after Prime Minister Modi ji became the leader of the country. I think they have not learned lessons. It is the Congress party which people of the country are disgusted with. You've never seen public having such great dissatisfaction with the opposition. Prime Minister Modi's ratings today, his approval ratings are among the highest. He's the most popular world leader. He's topped the rankings of the world charts every year. Just the result in Gujarat election clearly shows where the public wind is blowing.
No, so I asked her that question. I asked Mahima Singh that question, that are you then alleging the public is communal and bigoted that when they're voting for the BJP? She's saying you've created this atmosphere where your propaganda runs large, where your narrative runs large. They're only trying to bust that narrative.
No, I think if they don't want to look within for their continuous decline, and if they want to blame the public for their loss, they might as well become extinct very soon. I think good luck to them. The people of this country, I think the country is more than united ever before. The entire country is more peaceful than ever before. Entire northeastern region, which during the years of the Congress, seen a lot of insurgency, seen a lot of disaffection, today is feeling very, very, very pro-India. It's feeling extremely proud part of India. You've seen during Congress regime how different sections felt very alienated from India. Today they are experiencing development. Jammu and Kashmir, the Congress, during the Congress regime, they must be ashamed that their leader of the opposition in Lok Sabha asked the government whether government has spoken with Pakistan for removing Article 370. This is their intellect. They need to be first aligned with India's nationality.
Okay.
They
Can I bring in Mahima Singh?
Nationalistic fervor at all.
Okay, let her respond, then I'll come back to you. I'll go across to our other guests in just a bit. Yes, Mahima Singh.
Respond. The emergency that Indira Gandhi ji, is blamed about was an
very democratic action. That's what you want to say? That was
let her finish.
Public welfare.
Let her finish, then you respond, GVL. Yes.
Some basic discipline, that was an announced one. What about 2016 Uttarakhand? This is a categorical example. There are many more that I can talk about, but I'll just talk about 2016 Uttarakhand. And let me say that he's talking about Modi ji's popularity. What are they making of it? Yes, I agree that there was dissatisfaction around the Congress regime, which is what they have leveraged upon. They have not come to the power.
Dissatisfaction today.
Do not interfere. Please do not interfere. Please do not interfere.
No, but you can't have a monologue here.
One by one, I'll give you opportunity, GVL. If both of you speak over each other, then we will not be able to hear either. I'll give you an opportunity, GVL. I'll give you an opportunity, GVL. Let her just respond to you, then I'll give you time.
They're talking about Jammu and Kashmir. The whole country is reminded of the deception PDP had to face at the hands of, the BJP. And we remember that how whether it was good or not, abrogation of 370. But the state has not come back to its state of affairs today. And let me give you a small example. This evening, I was on a national debate with a BJP spokesperson. She ended up saying that, Rahul Gandhi ji says that India is a union of states and not a country. I mean, this kind of narrative that they built around Rahul Gandhi, around the Congress, it's just a matter of who is facing them to confront their lies and to bust their lies.
Mahima Singh, the BJP is up in arms. The BJP claims that, this is the diatribe that has been coming in from the Congress party for the last 8 years, ever since Narendra Modi became Prime Minister, that you've been spreading this canard that India is going to be broken, India is no longer going to remain a democracy, and the people are not buying this message anymore. Is this not old wine in a new bottle?
Who says that India, Shivani, good evening, that India is not buying that message anymore? Let me just say that the message that we are taking through the Bharat Jodo Yatra is well defined in this kalam of Bashir Badr Sahab very well.
You can't throw this charge willy-nilly with no authenticated source. We are currently trying to deal with Chinese aggression.
If we put India down, that means we can put Modi on the map. Is that the right strategy, or do you disagree with that kind of an approach?
I cited you ample evidence when it comes to Tablighi Jamaat. You said that this is some kind of conspiracy.
Here is Rahul Gandhi speaking in Hindi and saying that Hindi speakers should not dream big because they'll not get a job outside. That is where the problem begins.
On bail, and she is going out and spreading hate, like that. Hate mongering is only second to the nature of Bharatiya Janata Party members. We've seen crimes after crimes. Yet there is not enough dialogue about that.
Okay.
So,
Mahima Singh, the reason I said that the people are not buying it is because I am looking at electoral results. And the reason I'm also asking this question is that from 2016, when Rahul Gandhi said RSS, BJP believe in dividing people, 2018, when Rahul Gandhi said, mind you, on foreign land, BJP, RSS are weakening the country by causing divisions and spreading hatred, to 2022 in September, when he started his yatra, he said BJP and RSS spread hatred. We will not allow their ideology to divide the country. My question to you was more political. I'm not really suggesting whether the Congress is better or the BJP is. My question was that this is not a new message. This is a message that you've been harping on since 2014, since Narendra Modi came to power. Election after election, the BJP is only increasing its footprint, while the Congress has virtually diminished.
I get it, Shivani, but just because there's been enough clouds, to hamper the radars, doesn't mean that the radars should stop working. Or, Narendra Modi ji's understanding was different, although on that front. But I have to say that just because the lies are overpowering does not mean that the truth will have to be stopped from being spoken out. Okay. We'll keep reiterating what we have been saying. Sarveshwar Dayal Saxena ji, in 1949, when Mahatma Gandhi ji was shot, had aptly said, यदि तुम्हारे घर के एक कमरे में आग जल रही हो तो क्या तुम दूसरे कमरे में सो सकते हो? यदि तुम्हारे घर के एक कमरे में लाशें सड़ रही हो तो क्या तुम दूसरे कमरे में प्रार्थना कर सकते हो? यदि हाँ, तो मुझे तुमसे कुछ नहीं कहना है. So those who are still voting for the BJP in spite of the hate mongering, in spite of the mudslinging they are doing in the current scenario of politics in the country today, I am sorry to say that the lines by Saxena ji are being realized today.
But ma'am, are you not effectively condemning the public, the voter that is voting for BJP, when you say that they are communal and their agenda is communal, but they are being voted to power? You are almost alleging that the public is communal, that is voting for them. How is that public ever going to vote for you when you condemn them like this?
Not at all. The amount of false narrative building, the amount of narrative fallacy, in technical terms, let me say, that the BJP has built is just overwhelming. The way they have sabotaged the functioning of institutions in this country. Justice Ramanna said, and not I am saying, the kind of hampering of the media that has happened, and that's what we keep on reiterating. So, on every front, the BJP has actually taken over the democracy, and now they are on, to take the judiciary also. Every day we are seeing that they're.
But there are examples from Congress rule. Emergency, by the way, the only official emergency we've had was imposed by a Congress Prime Minister. And we know why that emergency was imposed, was over a judgment by a court. We know what happened in Shabano case. But anyways, let me go across to GVL Narasimha Rao on the two big messages that have come from the Congress party today. Mr. Rao, the Congress says, one, you are the one who are actually doing tukade of the country. Interesting use of the phrase there by Mani Shankar Iyer. And secondly, Mallikarjun Kharge today said that you are going to, completely diminish democracy in the country if you continue. And under Narendra Modi, there will be dictatorship soon.
I think it only shows the Congress party's utter frustration. They are trying to peddle this fake narrative for a very long time. Fake projection of an intolerant India began in 2014 in right earnest after Prime Minister Modi ji became the leader of the country. I think they have not learned lessons. It is the Congress party which people of the country are disgusted with. You've never seen public having such great dissatisfaction with the opposition. Prime Minister Modi's ratings today.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamal. Breaking news coming in from Nellore, where the death toll in the TDP stampede tragedy has risen to 7 now. The incident happened at TDP Chief Chandrababu Naidu's rally, which took place in Nellore, and the death toll has gone up to 7. That's a piece of tragic news that's coming in from Nellore, where what we are learning is that the death toll in the TDP stampede tragedy has gone up to 7. The incident happened at TDP Chief Chandrababu Naidu's rally in Nellore. Several people are still battling for their lives in hospital, but the death toll has now gone up to 7, and it is believed that the death toll will go up because many people are critically injured after that stampede which took place at TDP Chief Chandrababu Naidu's rally, which took place in Nellore. So what we are learning is that the death toll is now at 7 after a stampede took place at that packed rally which was held by TDP chief Chandrababu Naidu. This took place in Nellore. The death toll at first came in at 5 and it's gone up by 2 more deaths have been reported by the authorities, going up to 7. This happened when there was a stampede at that rally, as you can see on those visuals on your screen, which was being led by TDP chief Chandrababu Naidu. This took place in Nellore. So that's the breaking news that's coming in from that rally. Tragic news coming in as Chandrababu Naidu makes that political pitch in Nellore. This tragedy has taken place at his rally, where the death toll has now gone up to 7. I'm joined by Swastika Das on the phone line to get the latest details when it comes to this horrific incident that's taken place at the TDP rally in Nellore. Swastika, over to you.
Well, Ayushman, the information that we're picking up is that the death toll has risen to 7, I beg your pardon. And it is likely to go up according to the authorities because the people who have sustained injuries, some of them have sustained serious casualties and injuries, and they are under treatment. The chaos happened at Mr. Naidu's rally in an area called Kandukur in Nellore district, in fact. That is where he was on his way to address a rally. As the crowd started gathering at his rally, there was a commotion that takes place, and people, while jostling against each other, created a stampede-like situation. Many of them fell into a drain because it is a narrow road, and it so seems that the drain was deep, and there was also water by eyewitness accounts that we've picked up. Mr. Naidu, in fact, immediately abruptly cancelled his public meeting there, rushed to the hospital to meet the victims, and in fact announced an ex gratia of 10 lakh rupees to the families of the deceased.
Right, and any reaction coming in from the state government as well when it comes to providing compensation to these victims and their families?
One can definitely expect some kind of political fireworks to happen subsequently, but as of now, the priority also on the part of the state government is to ensure that the casualty numbers is kept down, because it was a huge gathering. It was evident. It's evident through the pictures that we're playing out on the screens right now. For now, the target of the state government is to give all kinds of help towards the persons who have sustained injuries. So no political slugfest at this point in time, but certainly going by the political situation in Andhra Pradesh, it is anticipated once the casualty situation dies down.
Right. Thank you, Swastika, for getting us the latest from Nellore. But as Swastika is also pointing out, the death toll is likely to go up as many of the injured have serious injuries. They are currently battling for their lives. So that's the message that's coming in from Nellore, where there was that stampede at TDP chief Chandrababu Naidu's rally. The death toll currently at 7. But shifting focus to the other political fireworks that are taking place in the national capital, when it comes to the Bharat Jodo Yatra, the BJP versus Congress battle is now escalating surrounding that yatra. Now today, Mani Shankar Iyer alleged that it was in fact the BJP which is indulging in tukde politics. Mallikarjun Kharge has alleged that the Modi government and the RSS will remove democracy in India and bring in a dictatorship. The BJP hit back, calling it an insult to the public's mandate and accusing the Congress of appeasement politics.
भारत को टुकड़े टुकड़े बनाने वाले ये संघ परिवार के लोग.
Another day, another controversy, courtesy the Congress party. Serial offender Mani Shankar Iyer is now accusing the Sangh Parivar of dividing the country and is pitching the Bharat Jodo Yatra as a unifier.
धर्म के आधार पर, भाषा के आधार पर, जाति के आधार पर, संस्कृति के आधार पर भारत को टुकड़े टुकड़े बनाने वाले ये संघ परिवार के लोग हैं और उनका जो बुरा काम है उसके खिलाफ ये यात्रा चलाई जा रही है. भारत को जोड़ने की आवश्यकता है. हम तो महसूस करते हैं बहुत उसको टूटने का प्रयास हो रहा है और इसके खिलाफ हम सबको लड़ना है. आपको भी लड़ना है, हमें भी लड़ना है.
The BJP hit back, claiming that it was the Nehru Gandhi family that broke India with partition in 1947.
Congress, which itself is broken, the only time India was broken was at the time of partition, thanks to the Congress party.
It's not the first time that Congress has claimed that the country is being divided. Rahul Gandhi himself has accused the RSS and BJP of spreading hatred to divide India.
The BJP thinks that they can divide this country. This country cannot be divided.
भारत को जोड़ने की आवश्यकता है.
But Manishankar Aiyar has been known for making personal remarks against Prime Minister Modi. From claiming that a chaiwala will never become the Prime Minister to calling Modi a neech aadmi.
लगता है कि ये आदमी बहुत नीच किस्म का आदमी है.
So is this just another off-the-cuff remark, or is there any truth to the India's divided claim?
And now shifting focus to another political war, this one down south. Tamil Nadu BJP President K. Annamalai has hit out at the DMK government over the Coimbatore blast. Now Annamalai has tweeted, and I quote, "The DMK government continues to maintain the Coimbatore blast as a cylinder blast. The NIA has yet again categorically stated that it was an ISIS-linked suicide bombing incident and has taken 2 terrorists in connection to this into custody today. Will the state intelligence wake up to this hard truth at least now?" So strong words coming in from the Tamil Nadu BJP president against the DMK government. I'm joined by Purnima Murali on the phone line, who's getting us this piece of breaking news. So Purnima, the political war over the Coimbatore blast only escalating.
Absolutely. The politics over the Coimbatore blast is only escalating. Remember, the NIA has been solving the case, and at a time when the NIA has issued a press release and said that they have arrested 2 more in connection with the blast, and also cited that it was a planned attack, and said that based on the investigation, they found that the accused have, the deceased and also the